If you own an S-Corp and you do not pay yourself correctly, then you are at risk of getting into some serious trouble with the IRS. You cannot just withdraw money from your business bank account as an owner's distribution when you own an S-Corp. There are some other big requirements that you must also meet. Now, the biggest requirement of them all is that you must pay yourself wages through an actual payroll system. Now, this is not just something that you should do. This is something that you have to do. It is required. And if you do not do this, then you are simply inviting the IRS to audit you, and they can turn around and recharacterize your distributions as wages that are in fact subject to self-employment taxes. And not only that, but you also risk paying way more money in additional fines, penalties, interest, and so on. So as a licensed CPA that helps people form and manage their S-Corps every single day at mycpacoach.com, I want to give you a very simple step-by-step guide to help you pay yourself from your S-Corp and avoid these big headaches that can come up later down the road. Even if you have not run payroll at all this year, don't worry. I'm going to give you a simple workaround for this as well to get you caught up in a few short steps here. So go ahead and like and save this video and let's jump right in. All right, let's start by helping you determine how much you actually need to pay yourself, and then I'll walk you through the easiest way to get this done so you can get back to running your business. So step number one, you need to determine a reasonable salary to pay yourself from your S-Corp. The IRS specifically states that shareholder employees of S corporations must pay themselves a reasonable compensation for the services that they provide to their corporation. They require you to do this because all W-2 wages are subject to employment taxes, and the government wants to collect as much of those taxes as possible to fund things like Social Security, Medicare, and so on. So as an S-Corp, you are supposed to be paid a W-2 salary just as an employee would for the work that you are doing in your business. And typically the IRS wants that W-2 amount to be high so they can collect more money and taxes from it, right? And as business owners, we actually want it to be as low as possible so we can pay less of those payroll taxes. Also, keep in mind that as the owner of your S-Corp, you can still pay yourself owner distributions from the remaining profits after paying your W-2 salary. And those owner distributions are not subject to those same payroll taxes. So in short, you just need to pay yourself a W-2 to satisfy the IRS requirement. And then you can take the rest of your profits in owner distributions if you would like to. Now at my firm, sometimes I will see people literally paying themselves way too much from their S corporations because they think that their W-2 is the only way they can pay themselves and take money out of their business. But it's not, it's just the first way. Always remember, you get paid a W-2 for the work you do in your S-Corp as an employee. You get paid owner distributions for the ownership you have in your S-Corp as a shareholder. Now let's address one of the biggest questions I get related to this topic, which is, how exactly do I determine my reasonable salary? The IRS wants you to determine that based on the type of work you do for your business and how much it would cost you to hire an employee to do similar work. And they do provide some general factors to help you determine this, like your training and experience, the duties and responsibilities that you're performing, the amount of time and effort that you are devoting to the business, and so on. Now, as a general rule, most tax professionals believe that your reasonable compensation should typically be somewhere around 30 to 40% of your business profits. But with that said, it can be lower or higher depending on several factors like the size of your business, how much income it earns, and your level of involvement in the income that the business is earning. For example, a doctor that is responsible for earning every dollar in their company might take somewhere around 40% of their business profits as a W-2 salary, whereas someone who spends just a few hours a week on their business doing things like administrative work, for example, might take just 10% of their business profits as a salary. Now, those are just some simple examples. At the end of the day, you just need to determine how much you would pay someone else to do the same exact task that you are doing for your company and submit that to yourself as a reasonable salary. But please do not overcomplicate this. Most people who get in trouble with this fail to take any reasonable salary at all. So you would already be doing better than most people by trying to comply with this vague requirement and paying yourself a W-2 salary. So just pick a number that you can justify and use that amount as your reasonable salary, and then you can move on to the next step here, which is step number 2, setting up payroll for your S corporation. Now, a good payroll provider will be able to do 3 things for you at a minimum. Number 1, they will allow you to pay yourself and calculate all of your payroll taxes on your behalf. You shouldn't have to do any of that. Secondly, they should withhold those payroll taxes from your paychecks and pay them on your behalf. And third, they should be able to file all of your payroll tax returns that are required and issue your W-2 to you at the end of the year. Now, to get all of this set up and running, all you would have to do is purchase a payroll plan, and they will guide you through some simple registration steps to get everything connected and running for you. Most reputable payroll providers have pricing that start as low as $40 to $60 per month, which is a very small cost in comparison to the tax benefits that most people receive from using an S corporation. But in terms of choosing a provider, most people I work with use Gusto, ADP, or QuickBooks Payroll. And as a CPA, I've used all 3 of them, and personally, I tend to prefer Gusto or ADP. And because our firm does so much business with these providers, we also have exclusive discounts on all 3 of these services. So if you want those, I'll link them for you in the description of this video below to help you save some money while you get all of this set up. But if you have an S-Corp, you must use a payroll system of some kind. Again, this is a requirement, so set something up as soon as possible, and then you can move on to step number 3, backpaying your reasonable compensation. So once you have purchased your payroll plan and you've completed all of the setup steps, all you would need to do at that point is pay yourself. But we have a problem. Normally, people are setting this up in the middle of the tax year or near the end of the year, which makes this step a little bit more complicated because now you need to find a way to pay yourself this salary for the entire year. For example, let's say you set up your payroll system in December and you want to take a $50,000 reasonable salary for the year. Well, if you put $50,000 in your payroll provider as your annual salary, it'll likely only pay you 1/12 of that amount because an annual salary is typically paid over 12 months, and we just have 1 in this example. And if you find yourself in a situation like that, all you would need to do is back pay yourself for wages you missed in earlier months. Now, there are a number of ways to accomplish this, but the easiest solution that I've found to do this is to just pay yourself a one-time bonus to back pay your reasonable compensation at one time. Essentially, this would allow you to submit your entire salary for the whole year as one bonus payment, or just submit a bonus for the time period where wages were not submitted. But the bottom line here is that you will want to run the entire amount of your reasonable compensation through your payroll provider by the end of the year. That way, your provider will be able to prepare your W-2, which is evidence that you submitted your S-Corp compensation correctly for the tax year. Now, the 4th step that you need to take is to pay yourself wages on a consistent basis. Once you have back paid your wages through your S-Corp, you should establish a rhythm in terms of how you will pay yourself wages going forward and in what frequency. Some business owners prefer to wait until the very end of the year to pay their reasonable compensation, which allows them to have more cash on hand for their business throughout the year. If you decide to do that, then you will need to use the back pay method similar to what we discussed in step 3. But alternatively, you can set up weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly payroll cycles to pay yourself on a consistent basis throughout the year. Then, as long as you don't miss any of those payroll cycles, you should have paid yourself the exact amount of money that you planned on, which means that you should receive a W-2 that reflects your reasonable compensation in the following year, and you'll also be compliant with the IRS S-Corp requirement here. Now, I have several more videos that address many other areas of S-Corps, from paying your estimated taxes on time to finding the best tax write-offs. So make sure you subscribe and check our channel out for more details about that. And if you need immediate assistance with this, just go to mycpacoach.com to apply to work with my team today.